Hi there, I'm James Dapperchi, and this is Coffee and a Case Note. Team, today we're going to be talking about a derivative action. And as we all know, a derivative action is when the shareholder in a company wants to stand in the shoes of that company and bring a claim on behalf of that company. The company we're talking about today is a company that operates a veterinary clinic. It's a vet, and it's got 3 shareholders, each of whom have an equal shareholding. We've got 2 shareholders who are spouses, and we've got another shareholder who is the practice manager of the vet company. The situation they find themselves in is that the spouse's marriage sort of deteriorates over time. In about 2019, the marriage especially deteriorates and things get very difficult. And then later in 2022, the marriage is actually dissolved. But the real sharp point of the vet practice is the exit of the spouse who is the plaintiff in today's proceedings. So let's get into it a little bit. So this vet practice is in the state of New South Wales. It's what some people refer to as a smallies practice, but it's also got some exotic elements to the practice as well. And in fact, a substantial part of the practice is what is sometimes called rehabilitative work, and that actually includes things like chiropractic work and acupuncture. And another substantial part of the practice, and indeed the practice's biggest client, is a local sort of koala location, like a koala sanctuary, and the vet clinic provides services to this koala sanctuary. And so this vet practice is buzzing along. And the plaintiff in today's proceedings is a vet, as we might have said. One of the spouses, the plaintiff, is a vet, and the other spouse, who is a defendant, is also a vet themselves as well. But what we have is that over time, in about May 2021, we have our plaintiff spouse today slightly intermeddling in the vet company's relationship with the koala sanctuary and suggesting that the signing of a new deal for a new set of services being provided by the vet clinic might be delayed. A little bit after that, there's a suggestion that there's been serious misconduct from the plaintiff, and the plaintiff is terminated on the basis of that serious misconduct, or that alleged serious misconduct, and ceases to be an employee from about that time. Sip. When you're asked, you got to hand one in. And so, from the time of that termination, also retires as a director. So we have this termination where spouse 1 who is terminated resists the basis for this serious misconduct. There's suggestions of bullying, essentially, in the nature of the serious misconduct, but those suggestions are not accepted and indeed rejected by the plaintiff. Following this, there's some complexity where the plaintiff themselves actually becomes a senior employee at the koala hospital, and the koala hospital ceases its relationship with the veterinary practices company. And so we have this sort of crunchy situation where the former senior employee and director of this vet practice has stopped being a senior employee, has stopped being a director, and has gone off to become a senior employee of the koala hospital that used to be the vet practice's principal client. Now, parallel to all this, there are family law proceedings going on between the plaintiff and the first defendant. Remember, they're spouses and they're shareholders in the company. And as people who know family law better than I do will tell you, part of the element of that family law dispute is almost certainly likely to be a valuation of the shares in the company that's operating this vet clinic, and a suggestion that one party buy the other out. And that suggestion that seems fairly uncontroversial and indeed tends to be accepted by a lot of the parties is that it's going to be the plaintiff who's going to sell the shares to each of the defendants, the practice manager and the former spouse. There's a number of reasons for that, and one of the reasons for that is that the 2 defendants, the former spouse who's still there working at the practice and the practice manager, are doing their best to sort of find a new location and expand the offerings of the vet practice in order to try to make sure it comes back to a nice, valuable level. But we have these family law proceedings, and at the time of this application for leave to bring a derivative action, the family law proceedings are actually set down for a hearing. So we've got this court date looming for this family law dispute, this family law outcome between the plaintiff spouse and the first defendant spouse. And so what we have is quite an interesting contest going on, and it may have as much volume as you can hear in the background this morning. But that is besides the point. We have the plaintiff saying, hey, I'm going to come to the federal court and I'm going to bring this derivative suit And I'm going to suggest that you, defendant 1 and defendant 2, have breached your duties to the company by opening up this other practice, this whole new company that provides some of these rehabilitative services. And I'm going to do that unless you pay me the employment benefits that you failed to pay me in the past. That's the annual leave you refused to pay, and that's the notice period you refused to pay. When you said that I was canned on the basis of serious misconduct, you didn't give me notice, and you said that I used all my annual leave. Well, I reject that, and if you don't accept your obligation to pay annual leave and to pay notice, I'm going to bring this derivative suit, and that's going to be on the basis that you've breached your duties to the company by having a new company provide these rehabilitative services. Now, we've got another sit, happy to. When asked, we must respond. Happily. And so what we have in the family court proceedings is a dispute raised by the husband there as well to say, hey, family court or the family federal circuit court or whatever it's called now, you're going to have to bear in mind in your valuation of the vet company that the two defendants have diverted work away from this vet company off to their new company providing these rehabilitative services. So the husband's already arguing about that in the family law proceedings in the court whose name escapes me just at the moment. And so if we skip back to our case, the derivative suit application, remember that the application for leave to bring a derivative suit has to satisfy those 5 criteria, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Corporations Act. They've got to show the company's not going to bring the application. They've got to show they're coming in good faith. They've got to show it's in the best interests of the company that leave to bring the derivative suit be granted. They've got to show, what else have they got to show? They've got to show there's a serious question to be tried in relation to the claim. They've got to show the company's been given notice. And here the court says, yeah, it's obvious the company's not going to bring the claim. It's obvious the company's been given notice. And it's obvious there's a serious question to be tried. There is a real question about, hey, did defendant 1 or 2 divert this rehabilitative work off to their own entity at the expense of the company in a similar way to what the plaintiff had done in taking an employment role at the Koala Hospital, we should just say. And the court says what has not been satisfied, and so the reason the plaintiff fails in their application to bring the derivative suit to not be able to stand in the shoes of the company to pursue the directors on the basis they've breached their duties is the court says you're not coming in good faith, and it's not in the best interest of the company that leave be granted to you to go and pursue these directors on the basis of these alleged breaches. The reason for the good faith point is the court is prepared to accept that in essence the derivative suit, based on that letter that says I'm going to bring a derivative suit unless you pay me my employment benefits, is going to be essentially an abusive process. And the reason it's going to be an abusive process is it's not really a derivative suit to bring the derivative applications, it's a derivative suit to apply pressure to try to get these employment benefits back. So that's reason 1. Reason 2 is the court says it's also pointless because we don't need this derivative suit to be granted. We've got these parallel family law proceedings that are going to deal with the sale and purchase of these shares, that are going to deal with this other new rehabilitation company that's been incorporated as well, and so you're not coming in good faith. The court says it's also not in the best interest of the company for leave to be granted to you, and the reason it's not in the best interest of the company for leave to be granted is that if leave was granted, you essentially lose the 2 senior employees of the company. They're just sucked away to go off and get involved in litigation that the court finds is pointless. And so our plaintiff who came today to get leave to try to bring a derivative suit is not granted leave to bring that suit. The application fails. I hope that discussion assisted you, and I look forward to joining you again soon, loudly or quietly, and whether Adam interrupts with requests for me to have a sip of coffee or not. Look forward to catching up with you again soon over another coffee in respect of another case note. Cheers.